Guys, welcome back to the Dad Bug Pub podcast. We are here with Charley Valla from Valla Media Asset Blocks, a dad, an entrepreneur, an investor, amongst other things. Charley, welcome on the Dad Bug podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, guys. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, we're so excited because the whole purpose of this podcast is to interview dads like yourself who are doing amazing things, either as an entrepreneur, as an athlete, as an amazing professional doing incredible things, but also balancing that delicate lifestyle of being a dad whilst also being a provider for their family, which is, I know Brendo and I, we're brand new parents. I've got a 9-month-old. He's got an 8-month-old. Mine's almost 10. Yours is almost 8 months now, right? Oh, 9 months.
Almost
now,
8.
Right?
Yeah. We're a week
8,
off.
Right. Yeah. So it's we're kind of balancing that juggle between trying to become a provider for our family and be an entrepreneur and be driven, be hungry and be motivated, whilst also spending our time with our child and our beautiful family, which I know for me, myself, it's kind of hard to find that balance. So, Charlie, I suppose to kick us off, tell us, how did you become an entrepreneur straight out of the gate?
Yeah, how cool. I've actually got a 2-year-old, right? So I'm in the same camp, guys. I'm a year ahead, but it's like I will say it gets more fun. The first year is mostly about mum. Once they can move and they want to play, it is so much more fun, in my opinion. And I'll tell my child that. I want it recorded. He wasn't cool until he was in his second year.
See, that's funny because I hear that so much that like the first couple of years aren't cool for the dad. Like it's more so about mum. I've actually found like the first year to be like really, really cool from my side. So even hearing this, I just keep thinking, oh man, this is just going to get better and better and better. Like as things go along.
Yeah, the first year's still awesome. Like I loved that a lot, but for a lot of the time I was really just a lackey for mum. And like it's something where you want to obviously support your partner really well, and something I take very seriously. But when you can take your child to, like, we have these like trampoline centers here now.
Oh yeah.
So you can go. It's called Gravity Zone in Melbourne, and like I took my son Jack there on the weekend, and it's like my cheeks hurt from smiling. Like it's really difficult to like not be so entertained. And mum doesn't come. That's our time. Right, that's our time to do something, which is awesome. But anyway, to answer your question directly there, I found myself in, I suppose, an interesting place in life where I had done a plumbing apprenticeship. I'm actually, I was a licensed plumber. I am not anymore. I let that license expire. But I went the route of going into the trade for no other reason, and this is horrible, because I knew someone who was a plumber and they were rich as fuck. I was like, I look at this guy and I was like, all right, hot wife, good cars, madhouse, I'm down. Like this is obviously there's something here. And I had a lot of really good times in my apprenticeship, but I found myself in a circumstance where I was enjoying life, loving life, but then essentially the money I was making in the industry wasn't great. And with the things I wanted to be able to provide for my partner, which I was just about to be engaged this time, with my partner Bianca, I was looking at this and I was like, the maths wasn't adding up. I was like making $1,500 a week as a 20-year-old, 21-year-old, like good money in like the relative terms. But I'm doing this maths and I'm going, well, my car cost me a couple of $100 a week just to look after, and fuel. When you're a plumber, you do a lot of driving. And then I'm like, we've got a small mortgage at this time, or a unit we're paying off, and lifestyle. And I'm like, I'm saving like $100 a week. If that. I'm one emergency away from being broke. And I just couldn't stop thinking about it. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Every day I'm driving to work and I'm coming home and I'm like, I've got to figure out another way to do this. And gut reaction was to, do cash jobs and work on the weekend. But then I'm like, not spending time with my partner, not really being a good partner at all, in all honesty, like just working all the time, which is a trap, I know, for many guys, myself included. And I was very, very fortunate that a friend gave me a CD, like when, you listen to CDs in your car. And it was an audio book all around the idea of like you become the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I could listen to this and I go into work and I'm like, eyeing off people. I'm looking around the room. I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, this is not good. Like, they're miserable, broke. They don't have good relationships with their kids. And then that was like that penny drop moment is like, I'm finding my out. Like, it's time for me to go into business. I perceivably thought that business owners have time, money, and freedom. That's why you do it. It's like, I don't want to be contained in these things. And I was like, this is my path. I've got to get after it. And it was more from fear of not being able to look after my family or be able to spend time with my future son that created all of, I'll say this, beautiful, wonderful, glorious mess that is business.
Well, you have so many different businesses, Charlie, that you've been in and been involved in. So being a plumber, surely the natural progression would be, I'm going to start a plumbing business because I can get all those nice cars, all the nice houses, be rich as fuck like your boss at that present point in time by becoming running a plumbing business. So why didn't that kind of cross your mind?
It certainly did, but there was a few things that happened at that point which I don't think often get taken into consideration unless you're kind of in these things. Like, it's funny when you look at something on the outside and then when you're on the inside, it's like, there's more to this than I first knew. So my boss, yes, very successful plumber, very good at what he did, but it's like there was a lot of infrastructure that went into that. So this was not necessarily going to be something that was able to look after me in the short term. It would have been a long-term play. So when I was in my 40s, like he was, that's probably when I would have been seeing the rewards like his, because the type of plumbing I did, you need machinery. You need like excavators and bobcats and trucks, 15 staff, like all these things. And then the second thing, a very key event of happened in my life, someone I know well, I'll say they're a friend, but more of an acquaintance. He got gifted his boss's business. His boss was retiring. He was a tradie. He gave him the building company as you can have it. He'd finished it, been with him for a number of years. He gave it to him, and I watched my acquaintance, friend, whatever you would like to call him, bankrupt himself over the next 12 months.
Wow.
Yeah, so you learn these things that, like, in the trade, like, there's terrible cash flow cycles. Like, you don't get paid. It's often 90-day terms. It's like, it's been so impactful, and it'll come around to later in the story where we talk about what I do today. But I watched him buy a new car and a jet ski, and like, life is so good for this first 6 months. And then he lost everything. His wife left him. He had a little girl that he barely got to see. And I was like, no, not doing it. This is not the way to do it. This isn't smart at all. And I'm very fortunate once again to get some good advice of, like, the plumbing industry is really developed. It's going to be hard to crack in a lot of way. Like, go to the future. Like, this internet thing's taken off, right? You can because it's new, rise up the ranks, and like, there's opportunity there. And with the mindset of, if it all goes to, shit, I'll just go back into plumbing, literally. Right? And I'll just go back in there and it'll be fine. So that was, again, not terribly well thought through, but the path I elected to go.
So I think you said that you were around about 20, earning 1,500 at that time. When these trigger moments happen, the realization, you're watching your friend go bankrupt, was that still around the same time, or was that a little bit further down the journey?
Yeah, so I, for timeline's perspective, like, I dropped out of school at 16. Like, I did not complete high school, did the apprenticeship thing. I was qualified at about 20, which is why I was able to make that type of money. The friend going bankrupt was about 21, 22. Like, I was just at that qualification stage where I had my registration and did have the opportunity to do those types of things.
So then from there, so you know that you're around about 21 from a timeline perspective. So you had this realization, someone's told you about, this future, this internet, you want out. So what was your process to then making your way out of it from there? Because you're with your partner at that stage, right? But no kids.
I'm laughing because this sounds ridiculous, right? This is where it's like, what's they saying is, like, pain is the perfect environment for growth. It's like, people that are comfortable, like, they don't do anything. So I'm on the internet literally searching for how to make money online. I'm on listening to podcasts in the car, like what we do today. Like, podcasting has been pivotal in my life decisions. I'm listening to this stuff and I'm going to it. And I was like, all right, I need to find something that I can do while I'm still plumbing. Right, I'll plumb by day and work by night. And I got online, and like, eBay was the craze at this time. Do you guys remember when eBay was new?
Yeah.
Dude,
yeah.
But you know what? Can I sidetrack this story for a second? So my first business, or my first entrepreneurial endeavor, was eBay. And it was when iPods, the second generation, were the big thing. And I just discovered that you could order from Alibaba in China before it was popular. So I searched and I went, I can buy iPods for $55 US and sell them on eBay in an auction for about $180 Australian. So I ordered through a bunch of them, sold them out straight away. By the way, I didn't know they were fake at the time until I got them. but I made a truckload of cash. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to order a whole bunch more. And I did. And then I started getting legal letters for doing counterfeit goods. And that was the end of my eBay career.
Wow. It's I was
I was young,
fortunate
man.
enough
I was
not to
young.
play with brand products, so I probably dodged a bullet there, but that was, I would say, luck. It wasn't through intent. But there's endless stories out there about this stuff, which I think is fascinating.
And Brendo just came out of jail.
That's right. That's right. Straight into the podcast world. Here we go.
Well, what I liked about eBay, you got to remember, like, I'm a high school dropout and I've been a trade, right? So as for like writing skills, like I was better with one of those like thick grey leads than I was a pen.
Yes.
Right? This is like my skill set is not developed, but I had a really good work ethic and I understood like, project management and things, which was very handy when it came to business. But I was like, cool, I get this, right? All I got to do is just sell things for more than I pay for them and I'll be all right. Like that was the mentality. And eBay meant that I could set up a store, sell the things on eBay, and then pack and send them every night. And that was my game plan. And I bought some guides and met some people in Melbourne who were doing this stuff. And I just like modeled and copied like an apprentice, like would in the trade. That's what you do. You find someone, oh, you know how to do this? Cool, show me. And then I do it. So I did that. And it was probably about a year of like doing both. And that was really hard. Like I got really, really burnt out. Like there was no kids on the scene at this stage. I'm 33 for context today. So it's been, a number of years through that. And my partner supported me really well in that time. She ended up actually becoming the packing and sending girl because the eBay thing kind of exploded. And over that time became what I did full time.
Wow. And so like fast tracking that, because obviously you and your partner went through a journey together of running a few businesses. And I know she's still involved in others and you guys have a series of different investments. I listen to your podcast, so I know all about it. But when your first child came along 2 years ago, how did that change your life? How did that change your perception of what you need to do and how you need to show up each day?
Yeah. So I knew I always wanted kids. Kids wasn't an accident for us. We're very intentional parents. Like we're a very well planned type. For context, my partner Bianca is like an accountant, right? You can imagine she's structured person, which is so awesome. We are very, very aligned in how we do that. And in all honesty, we run our home life like it's a business. Like our house is a business. So we have meetings and reports and quarterly, yearly goals and stuff. Like it's just who we are, and I don't hide that at all. Like we do that. So coming back to your question there, when I was about 28, maybe 27, we'd been going about things in business, and we said, right, well, we know we're going to have kids at what point? When are we going to do it? And what do things need to look like there? Because one of the things I really wanted, and like this deep desire for me was, I had seen mums who had 10 weeks old, 12-week old have to put their kids in childcare because they've got to go work to pay the bills. And it was so sad because you could see how much they hated it and just wanted to spend time with their child. And I was like, I am not doing that. Like that, I flat out refused. Like I would rather work all day, every day, 7 days a week than have that be the experience. If you want to work, different story. I can support that wholeheartedly, but having to, I'm not doing it. So we very much intentionally set up where my partner, Bianca, would have the opportunity to you can be a stay-at-home mum and just be with our child. You can work a bit. We get to choose. We want these options. And very, very fortunately through the successes we've had in business, and I say we because Bianca's absolutely pivotal to that, have been able to create that for our lives, which has been so fucking awesome.
So with that experience then and giving her the choice to be able to work or not, what after having a baby, and obviously especially for mums if they're at home, and I'm not sure if you have family to support around because many don't, what was her mindset like when it got time to make that decision if she wanted to work or not, or how have you structured that now? Because it's only 2 years, you're still pretty new.
I was going to say we made an absolute train wreck of it. It was a disaster initially. Like we built an idea of what it would be like to be parents. And Bianca wanted to do some part-time work and part-time parent, and like managing a child and having a kid is like, wow, this is way different than we thought it would be. So like we're like, oh, we're going to revert plan B. We're going to work this through. So we've had to revise our plans constantly. Just like I guess if you were starting a business, like you don't necessarily know what your day-to-day is exactly going to be like when you first get into it. So we've had to revise the way we do things many times and change. We closed down one of our businesses because we're like, we just don't have the time to do this properly. And, the sleep deprivation guys, you really start to go, what's 1 hour of sleep worth to me? So you kind of will shift your perspectives there as well.
So I just want to delve into specifics of that as well, because everyone's in a different scenario, and all the dads that we catch up with, one thing we discovered is there's not a cookie cutter solution, but there's little bits of gold and little gems to pull out from everyone, and everyone's in a different situation. So when you started, then there was the part-time, bit of part-time work, bit of part-time mum. I think that we can all say, especially first child, you have, being a mum to that child is definitely a full-time job within itself. So when you decided to revert to plan B, what did that look like for you guys?
Yeah, so I'm this is just my opinions. People don't have to agree with these. But my view is that in a relationship, and I don't mind which way this goes, someone's got to be the provider, someone's got to be the carer. So one of us has to take those responsibilities. I was completely prepared to be a stay-at-home dad if Bianca's dreams and desires were to go crush it in business. And she's very capable of that, which is why it was such a tough decision for us. It was elected that I would go and be the provider role and Bianca would do the more carer role. Now, with having a business, and I also work from home, we have a house with a separate dwelling, so I've got my home studio. I just literally go out of the house, run to the dwelling and do this type of stuff. I'm a very, very active dad. It's not like I go and work 24/7. I see that as a key. But the thing that is there is I know my responsibility is, go make X per month or go make this type of thing happen. So, and then Bianca's stepped into that carer role. I will also mention is that we do have some private help. We pay for a nanny support thing. We also, and I think we pay to have all our meals delivered by Muscle Chef, so we don't have to cook.
Oh, good choice.
I'll tell you some carnage stories. I'm in the house once and Bianca's trying to cook dinner while Jack is literally, I don't know how, just destroying everything. And Bianca's hair, she's got quite long hair, was out here. And I could, in her eyes were like this. And I'm like, we are not doing this. It's not happening.
No.
So you find your feet with a couple of these solutions. But that's how we've done things. And then the role Bianca does, I'll say 80% or maybe 70% of her time is, being the mum. And then 30% she does all our books and accounts and works on our investments and things these days.
So I want to kind of jump in there because you and Bianca met fairly early on in your youth, right? You were still a plumber when you guys first met, right?
Definitely. We met when I was 20. I literally still had P plates on my car and at that point, and we met at a friend's 21st.
Right. And so you were 20, you had P plates on your car, and you guys have gone through this amazing journey over 13 years. And, you've evolved and she's obviously had to evolve with you. Now, do you think you were the person that kind of made that change, or she kind of led you to become the person that you are today? Because I think in any relationships, both people have to move in the same direction together. Otherwise, things fall apart. If you're starting to move in completely different separate directions, and I like what you said earlier, you have report cards, you run your life like you run a business, or you run your family home like you run a business. Because without that, how do you know you're staying on check with where you are in the relationship and where your partner is? So how did you guys grow together?
It's such a good question. I kid you not, we've spent a lot of time on this topic. There's a general cycle in our home that we noticed is Bianca was actually the motivation for me to change, right? So she didn't know this though. We make this up as, I look at her and go, it's my job to look after you. She's not telling me to do that. I feel compelled to do that. And I think a lot of men, I won't speak for everyone, probably feel the same. I suspect you guys feel the same. And it's, so she's not aware of this, but I'm looking at her and go, right, you want to have a kid? I want to have a kid. I better get my ass to work. Now, then what tends to happen is, and I'm sure she won't mind me saying this, we're fairly open about these things, she tends to resist a little bit, right? She tends to not necessarily want to move at the pace I will. I'm a quick start. I go, I get things done, where she may take some time to catch up to that. But she always does. But we're aware of this now. So even with, I'll go through this, going from plumber to business, she was initially okay, we'll try it out, then loves it, then she's super in. She's like, now she's starting her own businesses. She's had bookkeeping businesses. She went into financial planning. She did some mortgage broking stuff for a while. Like she was a CFO. Like she started to get very entrepreneurial. Then we were like, all right, we're going to get to the parent stage. And then when the parent stage come along, she was like wanting to hold on to some of the business stuff. But then it was like, oh, no. Then it was there where I was kind of like a little bit ahead. So there seems to be this like lead and lag relationship we have, but we continually work together and do like, we do definitely do some like courses, personal development. We have things in place to make sure that we're aligned and supporting each other.
That's so amazing.
The support role is like massive, and obviously it's a big change for mums as they come into, they come into parenthood or live in the mum life. So I know, Ken's partner, she was just developing a business when their baby was born with web design. My wife and I actually met because we were each other's competition. We were sales reps growing up, and we were actually each other's competition in the market. And she was exceptionally good. She was a hustler. And they go through this distinctive change. And it sounds like your wife would have been in a similar position where, because they're taking on this carer role, and I agree with you, by the way, with the provider carer, and that's a completely instinctual, inbuilt thing that I think every man feels as soon as, it's time to be a dad. Because I went through the same thing as what you mentioned. But from a mum's perspective, they sort of lose a part of themselves that they had in. So I've found as the dad, part of that supporter role, that's almost been one of my biggest jobs, is being there as the support role. So did you go through something similar, and how did you approach being a dad, but not from a baby's perspective, from the mum's perspective as a supporter?
Yeah, I would say that I think society has done a terrible job at setting expectations of women. I will say, and it's an absolute shame where it's like for our household, Bianca had the belief, and I can say this because I've heard it from her. She's like, well, I should be able to work full time, have a business, should be able to be a mum, still be a good friend, do all the family things, support you in business. Like, that's insane. I couldn't do that. I don't know anyone who could do that. Yet, so for a lot of people, and I won't say all, that many people, or we did, like have these invisible expectations that are absolute bullshit. I don't think there is enough good information out there preparing couples for the change they're about to go through. Like we searched.
And do you think, Kristen and I, we searched immensely. And I was a big believer when our first son came around. I was like, I'm just going to structure your life with so much routine that anything outside of this routine is a waste of time. So let's just block your whole day off. So I was 24 hours. I put in sleep, naps. It's like, you have to nap at this time. The baby would be fed at this time. Of course, what am I thinking, right? As a new dad, babies don't feed at regular times when they pop out. No. They tell you when they want food, right? I'm like, every hour and a half, 2 hours. Then obviously as they age, it'd be 3 hours and it'd be at this specific time. He'd wake up at this, he'd wake up here, he'd go to bed here. It was just manic. And I was like trying to pop in my wife's business that she wanted to do so badly and how she could manage stuff. And it was chaotic. And I remember
that's so funny. I'm laughing. It's just like any male who's like logical, structured, trying to deal with like this illogical biology, and it's like, this doesn't fit the box. Like,
yeah.
Well, Kristen, I know you're good friends with Kim Barrett, Charley, and I know Kristen was in Kim's mastermind at the time. And Kim's like, show me your schedule. Show me how you're like managing life right now, because I know it must be stressful. She's like, yeah, Ken did me this calendar. He's like, what the fuck is this? But don't listen to Ken. No. Just throw Ken out the window. He's terrible. Don't listen to this. Like, we need to give you time to be a mum. Like, your business should be, third, fourth, fifth priority on your list right now, and just spend your time being the person that you want to be, which is the I suppose the provider for the child, right? We as men want to be the provider for our family, and then the woman. And I mean, there's not gender specifics. Men can obviously take on this role as well, but I know for a lot of men, it's that position of authority, that real testosterone drive. You want to be the provider for that family, be the breadwinner, so to say. But much like yourself, Charley, I know Brendo was similar in that position. If the wife wanted to kind of just go out there and hustle it, we were 100% ready to be that stay-at-home dad. But I think Brendo and I have great positions where we can support our family without the wife having to work. But my wife, and I think the same with your partner there, Charley, Bianca, they're quite ambitious. And you can't just take their identity of ambition away from them, right?
I guess it would be easy if she, like, her dream was to be a stay-at-home mum. And I'm sure that exists for some women where, like, they're literally going through the motions till kids and, like, that's when, like, time to shine. I know some mums, like, you know, through Mother's Group and things like that and friends. It's like, damn, you got your mum game nailed. Like, you are here to mum and respect. Like, it's a hard job. Bianca, my partner, on the other hand, incredibly capable in business and ambitious. And we've really, I think if she was in 100% mum role, would go insane. Like, so that's why we definitely incorporated some stuff in her life where she still gets that stimulation and still gets to do things that add immense value. So we, after numerous ideas and back and forths and all the rest of it that came through for her, and like everyone would probably have to think about it for their situation, is like she's quite good at finance, like very good. So investing made sense to us because a lot of the things you can do investing, like if you're a landlord or you own investment properties, it's not time sensitive. Like you can be more balanced, where if you were to be in something where it's like very much you've got to be able to answer the phone, you've got to be able to get back to clients, like it could be more difficult to do. So finding something that aligned to her values and suited her lifestyle was a really big thing. But if you're, I guess like if you're a fitness chick, you know, that could be that that's the time when you get to go do your classes and do your workouts, right? It's aligned to who you are. I don't think one thing would tick everyone, but I think it's greatly important to find something that ticks your life goals and ambitions. Otherwise, you know, wasted talent, right, I just think such a shame.
Yeah, agreed. It's a good point.
I've seen so many tall men and they just didn't get the opportunity to play in the NBA because they're over here in Australia, you know, wasted talent.
So going on to relationships then and balancing your relationship with your work life. Now, you guys, 2-year-old baby, you work from home, although it isn't at studio. So it sounds like you kind of have found some balance to be able to work while still being there at the same time. But relationships, are super, super important, even between you and your partner. So how do you guys structure things in with your busy schedules, the investments that you're running, the businesses that you're running, to still get that time for yourself? So what's your general structure like to maintain that balance?
Yeah, this is something we're constantly revising, and I won't pretend it's perfect for us. We've also had very unusual circumstances in Melbourne for the last 2 years, which have made things substantially more difficult at times as well. So I guess the way I think about it and the perspective I will go through here is like we both really try to make sure that so that's a really good question. So number one is we have a weekly meeting set in every Monday with each other where we go through the stuff I'm going to share with you now. So we've got a set time on the calendar. This is when we catch up. Jack is taken care of in that time. And then we discuss the things in our life that we need to work on. And we've got areas. So we try to have a social catch up once a week with someone else. So we will, go have dinner with friends or catch up with parents or do something social. We try to do something together. So it could be as simple as like, right, we're going to watch a TV show, or it could be that we might do a course together or go for a walk. But time together is a really important thing there. 3, health, like our health. Like I have seen like, the dad bod is real. It's definitely real. And
it's definitely real.
I'm like, we've got to put measures in place to be able to protect that. And then we've kind of got like this wealth creation thing's become a bit of a hobby for us where we're both kind of into it and enjoying it, where it's like something we can do together that we enjoy. And then the last one is obviously time together with our son, because when we are actively doing what we call family time, like it's such special moments we enjoy in a bit of a way. So more than anything, and I'm probably forgetting some off the top of my head here, is like we just go, okay, if in any given month we have, this many social catch-ups, this many time together, this many there, we can be sure we're probably not going to be too far off track with each other. And I always really like to know what's important to Bianca in her life, because it's easy for me to be able to win at that. So keeping aligned to each other's goals, right? Or values, if in another sense. Like I just think it's so imperatively important. And I think that, as you can see, we're very structured guys, very structured couple. But,
it's impressive, yeah.
Yeah, and then we also had time before it. Like we didn't accidentally get pregnant and then like, oh my God, we got to work this out. Like we spent years before it going, this is where we want to live. This is what the property needs to be. This is like the time available we need to be. And, much of it was wrong, but we had the room and means to adjust things. This room I'm in now is double plastered, double insulated and bricked. our toddler can have a fit outside that wall, I wouldn't know. So it's like
That's good
designed
planning,
for
man.
business. Like it's designed to do this stuff without those concerns. I don't work from a bedroom scared, shit, I hope he doesn't wake up, because like that would be intense.
It always reminds me of you probably remember that it was in COVID, and that news reporter is in his office, and the baby strolls in, and then the natty sprints in after him, and he grabs him, pulls him out. It just reminds me, it's
So
like
funny.
that every single time I say it, I just laugh. But it's like, yeah, I mean, poor planning around these types of things are real. And look, I mean, Charley, when you went into this and having so much planning in place, I know, with listening to your podcast, your house is paid off. You've got all these systems in place with your businesses. You've got all of these amazing financial backing with some passive income coming through from your investments. Are all these things necessary before you decide to have a kid? What was, from your perspective, what was going through your head before you were like, I'm going to have a child?
Yeah. So is it necessary? Absolutely not. As I get older and older, I think the ability to know what's true for you is one of the most important things. Someone we know, all know here, is a guy called Kim Barrett. I'm sure, like the
Yeah.
respect points, Kim. I used to do a podcast with Kim, and what used to amaze me, he would never want to know what the topic is or any of the notes before we recorded, because he's it takes the spontaneousness out of me. And I was like, that's insane. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, I've got points, I'm structured, and sure enough, every time he'd nail it. And if I didn't prep, it'd be shit. And if I gave him structure, it would be terrible. So it's like, I was like, all right, we're all different. Like, and I think there's really good examples for this. I quite like cycling. If I said, look, I'm going to go away for the weekend and ride hundreds of kilometers on a bike, for most people, they're like, that's a terrible weekend. I would hate that. But I love it. So it's like, I think every parent and person and couple needs to start to realize what's true for them and what's important to them. Now, in my circumstances, it's funny that this paid off house thing keeps coming up. It seems to be the thing I'm getting wind of. I had made up a story pre-kids that it's like, okay, well, if we're going to have a kid, what would be a way to make sure that we're not financially stressed? I'm like, well, if you had a paid off house, like you just wouldn't be stressed. Like, your mortgage is your biggest payment. So I just went rampant. I'm like, all right, everything I do in business, I'm just going to pay off the house. Like, it sounded insane. It was a ridiculous goal. And we did it by my 30th birthday. So every cent we made in business, I was very focused. I don't want to say live too frugally. I've certainly had some fun along the way, but there was a lot we didn't do. So we could, and sacrifices we made, we were both working hard to do that. So when we had a child, we didn't want to feel the financial strain in that way. It was awesome in that way, really. And to be frank, it's like sleeping in a house you own, amazing. It's really nice.
Yeah, I can imagine that stress being taken away, and like you said, it is the biggest payment. But you touched on cycling, and you touched on the dad bod. Now, I've grown up in the fitness industry, which is where me and Ken first met. So I'm always interested to know, obviously with, having a baby, running these businesses, these finite times, what do you do to keep fit and healthy? How do you take care of that health component of that bucket that you mentioned?
Yeah, so the backstory to this is the first few years I had an agency, which is one of my prior businesses that I sold. I let my health go completely. I did work like a maniac. I'm currently about 80 kilos at the moment. I got up to 104.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And was drinking every day and like just only eating takeaway because like I was go. I had an office in the city. And like I started to develop some health symptoms where I was like, oh shit, this is how you die at 50. And I was like, I reconnected with, hang on, want to have kid. I'm pretty sure that I need to be around a while and able if that's going to happen. And I'd always been like, childhood athlete, love my sport, love being active, but I just let it go. So I didn't get the dad bod, I got the business bod. Right. And it was a big wake up call for me. I also realized that, hang on, when you feel better, like you generally perform better. So if you're a fitter, healthier person, in general, you'll do better in business, you'll be a better partner, you'll be better in bed, hint, hint. And then also you'll be way more fun with your kid. So when I mentioned before, like the trampoline center, I'm not on the sidelines, I'm in there. Like I'm a participant, although I'm much worse for it this week. I will say, guys, I'm hurting in all these places I didn't know existed, but I still was able to do it. One of the benefits that comes from being a business owner, and again, I'm not one to say it's better or worse than being an employee, but one of the benefits is that you can create a sizable income. And that's something that I have been able to do where I make good money, and where I elect to spend my money. Again, I don't have a Ferrari in my driveway. I don't have the most ridiculous house you've ever seen. Where I've elected to spend my money is I get Muscle Chef meals delivered to make sure that my food is in check. We pay for help with nanny and care, and then we have a private gym at home and bikes and all the rest of it. So we have time to train and look after ourselves. And in doing that, we've been able to both really look after our health in a big way.
Cool. So gym at home is obviously like a key part to be able to then fit that in, still keep things in. By the way, by the sounds of stuff, you have your home set up absolutely perfect for family, business, and then the health side of things. Like it's all within a hub. You don't externally have to go anywhere. You've paid off your house. You don't even need to pay for a gym membership.
Well, the gym thing is interesting. We actually like going to the gym. We miss it. But if you guys aren't from Melbourne, they got shut down. Like they were
Good point,
closed.
of course.
So the decision was blow out or spend a couple of $1,000s on fitness equipment and like put in a reasonable gym. I was like, well, this is a no-brainer. Turns out I really like having a home gym. I just thought, I've always been one of those people that's been like, oh, those infomercials, like people just buy that shit and it ends in the corner. Like there's going to be a Bowflex or
right, you got a door, you got a gym.
Yes. So I was like, I'm never going to use this, but I've actually loved it because you do things you wouldn't normally do, where it's like I'll do a 15-minute workout with a kettlebell if I've only got 15 minutes, or like it just has, and then you see the gym, so it's a reminder of things. And like I will experiment. I've become quite a health advocate where I'll go, all right, morning workouts, night workouts, and it's like been really, really helpful for me with keeping things in check without, having to drive anywhere.
That's so good. That's so good. And I suppose, COVID for you then was a little bit easier than a lot of other people because you've got your studio set up, you've got your office set up, you've got your family home set up, you've got your gym set up. So you've got everything that you need to stay relatively healthy, fit, and sane, as opposed to other individuals that didn't have any access to exercise or any reminders to exercise. I mean, everybody always has access. If you've got 1 square meter of a floor, you can exercise. You can do burpees, sit-ups, jumps, whatever. But there's no constant reminder. And if you're walking past or seeing the gym, knowing it's downstairs or upstairs or wherever it may be, you're always going to be a little bit more motivated to get out there and do some exercises, which is really, really good. And that's just why I like, what you've done. Now, look, this is a little bit of a personal question now. I'm just curious now, Charley. You spent 3 years, it's been 3 years now since you paid off your house since you were 30. Now, looking back on that and now moving into asset blocks and understanding all of these amazing things that you can do with money that you've put in your house, would you say that that's a good investment, or would you have preferred to take all that money that you've spent on paying off your house into other different investments that you could be bringing in passive income for you?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So what occurred for me in a big way is like Bianca was the trigger in my life up until our son was born. So it's like I look at her and go, she needs a house, go get her a house. Oh, I need to be able to provide for our child. And she was very much the feedback loop. When we got pregnant, something changed. Suddenly life became bigger than us. And I was like, I felt an overwhelming responsibility for Jack, our son, our child. I'm like, his future matters, right? And it's our responsibility to make sure that occurs. And I looked at it and said that what I'm doing in business probably isn't going to be the thing to get there. It's like he may, don't get me wrong, business is great, but the internet could end. There's wars. There's all kinds of crazy stuff goes on in the world. And I'm like, I need to start thinking about this legacy piece. Like, what am I actually going to pass on to Jack so that he doesn't have to be a plumber or anything like that? Or if he, again, let's say he's a chef and he wants to start a restaurant. Like, hands up, I am the investor. Like, I will get this done. Like, I burden that. If he needs to go to uni and medical school, I'm not going to load him up with debt. As a family, I want to be able to provide those opportunities for my son. And I looked at where I was and I'd kind of ignored investing. I didn't understand it. Like I'm a business guy. I just made these assumptions that, cool, business is just going to look after me. Make money in business, pay your house off. You'll be fine. Don't worry about it. And fair enough. I probably will be fine, right? But I had this awareness again through just network and other things. It's like, hey, hang on, most business owners retire broke. Hey, hang on, it's like, how many business owners do you know that actually like retired from their business or sold their business? 60% of the businesses that get listed for sale don't sell. I'm like, oh shit, like, what do you mean? And then I'm looking at the Forbes list of richest people in the world, and it's like, there was this thing I noticed. It's like, all right, got good business, then bought real estate. It's like, and the story was always the same. And I was like, okay, got success, but the thing that they stored their wealth in or generated like legacy stuff for or passed on was like, in a lot of cases, not all, was property. And I was like, okay, I'm seeing something new here, and there's a perspective. Like, I need to learn more. And I went into the world of investing open-mindedly. I looked at shares, I looked at property, I looked at crypto, still have some crypto and fun stuff from there. But much like when I first got into business, the world changed. Like, I went from employee to business owner. I just had a completely different perspective. I saw everything differently from this moment. I suddenly realized the only purpose of my business is to generate profits to buy investments. That's it. Doesn't exist for any other reason.
Look, I spoke to I remember speaking to my wife's father, so my father-in-law, not so long ago, maybe about a year and a half ago, and I asked him, I was picking his brain. He owns a relatively big business, turns around $70, $80 million a year, so it's a big business, but obviously massive overheads. Like, he spends $200,000 a month on electricity, which is just mind-blowing.
I'd love to see his tax bill. I would love to see just that.
But so it was a fairly big business. But I remember sitting down with him after maybe like 3 or 4 bottles of wines I've read, whatever restaurants, him and I. And he said to me, Ken, most people think that I made my wealth through my business, but I didn't. I made it through property development. And like, that was a big trigger in my head. I was like, wow, man, why am I putting all my eggs in trying to build businesses when I can be taking some of that money and putting it in investments, which is so cool. And I think that's really, for me now, it's a legacy piece. It's like, it's not just about Kristen and I. And Kristen and I, we can always find money and make money and scrape by. And really, we could be happy camping around Australia or going around Europe and having an amazing time. But it's bigger than us now. It's Nate. It's my son. And it's like, I can't run the risk of not having money and not having a future for him. So we have investments for him, we have investments for us, but really it's ultimately for him in the future. Yeah. So, Charley, we're coming to the end of our time now, and I know Brenda's got a couple more questions, but one thing that I really want to know from you just before we kind of call this off is, what are the big 3 tips that you would give to us as new dads to be able to, emulate some of the amazing growth that you've had over the last few years in business or in life?
It's a big topic in itself. Tip number 1 is like the meals. I cannot say like getting pre-made meals so that you can not have to cook in your own household is just a time changer. And then it also ensures that your health isn't going to derail at a rate it would be if you're just sitting on Uber Eats. So I think that was probably our biggest tip number 1. Biggest tip number 2 is absolutely, I'm going to stick on the time thing, is actually, I'll take this one back. Big tip number 2, hire a sleep coach. We hired a sleep coach early for our son so we could create a good sleeping environment at night, because we were getting killed, like absolutely killed in the initial stages. And like, I think if you get your food and your sleep right, you stand to win in a really, really big way. And then 3, for the dads particularly, it's like, and I hate to say this one, but earning good money solves a lot of problems. Like, it really does. And I would say that is something you can do to help your situation and give you better options, whether it's buying private care so your wife can get some help at home, getting cleaners, or whatever it is, so you can be that supportive partner. Like, it's not just being there. And I know that's crucial, and time with the family is so important, and I wouldn't discredit that. but it's just that money is a pivotal role to the options you may have to set up a lifestyle option. It doesn't have to be a dirty topic or a dirty thing. There's so many amazing ways to do well and make money, but I just look at that and say that, the tip there is if you're below a threshold or you're below an area where you're not, it's just going to be much more difficult for you to enjoy this stage. Like I have immense fun at this stage and have great options because of those things.
I think that's a really, really good point. I'd lead in. I know we're going to wrap it up now. The things in the future I'd love to lead in with people who need to get to that next stage of earning money and then balancing out that time of having that side hustle, having that security, and still having their family time. But Charley, man, I'm so impressed with your structure, the reporting in the household, and everything that you guys have done. So analytical. It's definitely been definitely more structured dad out of the interviews that we've had so far. So yeah, thank you so much for your knowledge and your time today.
No, my absolute pleasure, guys. Happy to come back anytime.
Oh, that would be amazing. And guys, if you guys want to learn anything about investments, how Charley and where Charley puts his type of money, you guys are gonna have to check his podcast out. It's called Asset Blocks. It's on all the major platforms. Charley, do you want to give us a little bit of a spill into that? Like, what is Asset Blocks and what can people learn from that?
Yeah, so that's probably a good place to learn some of these things, in all honesty. So I've been very fortunate. I recently hit some very pivotal goals in my life on the wealth creation path, and I share them. I look at it and go, on my journey, I've been able to do some things that I think other people would love to have in their lives. Finding good information on these topics is incredibly hard, and there's plenty for everyone. So Asset Blocks is the podcast predominantly for business owners who want to get the money and finance and investing part of their life in order, because business owners are a very different breed, and the way they approach money and investing needs to be different compared to the person who might be an employee. So that's the podcast there. Definitely getting some great feedback as well from you guys as well, which has been awesome. So big thanks. Podcast is called Asset Blocks, Business Owner Edition, and you can check out assetblocks.com.au.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Charley. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Charley.